welcome. I'm Nira Berry, your host of Happy and Healthy, where we explore and discover all the many ways of keeping you feeling happy and healthy. And one of the ways that we can really stay feeling happy and healthy is to really resolve any kind of conflicts or maybe avoid conflicts in our life. And so today I have a really special guest. Please welcome my guest, Christopher Page.
Hi, how are you doing?
Thank you so much. And
Thank
Christopher is Executive Director of the Conflict Resolution Center. And I'm really excited to hear all about it. So tell me, what are the goals and the purpose of the Conflict Resolution Center?
Well, our goal is primarily our mission, where we say is to strengthen communities piece by piece. So in a short nutshell, we try to make sure everybody gets along, help people build relationships and find strategies and ways to deal with different issues within the community and what they're dealing with.
Okay.
So we try to resolve conflict, and like conflict resolution is a standard and a practice of getting people together to have them have discussions, have communication with each other. So our focus, we deal with mediators, and then we do trainings and telling people, like coming here to this opportunity to tell people, what is it about, how can we do some strategies so people can get along?
Wow.
And minimize conflict, and also see some opportunities with conflict. So conflict is not always a bad thing. Sometimes you learn from conflict. So I can have a disagreement from you, and I change my mindset. So you might think the color blue is the greatest color in the world. I think the color red is the greatest color in the world. And then after we think about it, well, maybe green is a good color. So you could get some compromise, you could have some win-win situations and understand what's going on in the conflicts.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. I never even thought about that, about how it can really open your mind up to new possibilities of what else is out there, where sometimes people's minds are very closed off and don't even think that there's another potential possibility out there.
Yeah, and that's because a lot of times, as I have on my glasses, we all see things through our own lens. Yeah. And our lens is based on history and based on our experiences, based on our way of life. And we see it through our lens. And sometimes other people see it through their lens. And what we try to do is help people be that lens cleaner. Yeah. So they can see it from a different perspective, see it a different way, and sometimes even see it more clearly so they can understand how the other person is seeing it.
Yeah, I like that term, lens cleaner. That's actually a very clever term, because it's a great metaphor. It's for really having a clearer perspective and seeing things in a different way.
Yes.
So how did you get involved with this? How long have you been?
Well, I've been at the Conflict Resolution. I've always been in community development, but I've worked in the Conflict Resolution Center for 4 years. I got involved because I wanted to be a part of changing communities, helping people. I'm an ordained minister, and one of our things is trying to help people love each other.
Oh.
And so one of the key things is being able to help people find peace. And so this is dealing with a peace from our neighbor to neighbor and helping people to get along, from businesses to customer. There's incidents in the news where you see people having conflict with each other, and sometimes those conflicts come from differences and lack of understanding. And so what I wanted to do is help people understand each other and help people get a better grasp of communication and better communication skills.
Wow, that's really beautiful.
Yes.
That really is very lovely. So can you share with us maybe some strategies that we could use either at home or at work?
Sure. Let's go with, I can give you one for home.
Okay.
So let's talk with, when I talked earlier about communication. So there's strategies of making sure that you understand where a person is coming from. And so what we normally do, like for example, I could use in my household with my mate. She comes to me, and I've learned her communication when she's saying things. And so I don't take out the trash. I'm supposed to take it out on Tuesdays. There's a many of Tuesdays I forget to take it out. And so I realized from her, she values cleanliness. And so I think one of the things we have to do is find out the strategy of what a person values, and then that minimizes conflict. Because I'm not the neediest of people. and I'm a little mess. I'm a messy person. And so I don't value cleanliness.
Well, thank you for opening up.
Yes, this is therapy, laugh therapy. And so what I've learned, though, is if I want to minimize conflict in the house, I have to make sure I do the things that she values, which is cleanliness. And that is making sure, doing all I can to make sure I take the trash out on Tuesday, because I know that's going to cause a conflict. Because I know it, and I know she values that, I try to do extra things to make sure that we don't get ourselves in that situation. And then also I've learned to, when I frame things where it comes of things of, I see that you're feeling upset about the fact that I did not take out the trash. And instead of just realizing and acknowledging person's feelings. So when she says something about the trash, I want to first acknowledge her feeling and listen to how she's feeling. And so that's one strategy. And then another strategy I could use, what I call praise, question, polish at work. So if a staff person is not doing what they're supposed to do, and you think they're doing, so say they did a report incorrectly, and you really, instead of getting the report and say, this is a mess, fix it. Instead of that, you praise them and say, well, I really like what you did in this paragraph, but one of the things I wanted to do is ask you a question about, why did you do this section this way? And then when they answer, you polish it. Well, what I would think is what you should do next time is probably do it this way, write this and write that, and then bring back the report. So come back to me with those things, and let's see how it works.
Oh,
so you praise them first, you question to understand, to get understanding where they're coming from, and then you polish it so that you can guide them in the right direction. So we call it praise, question, polish.
I like that. I like that.
Yes.
And other strategies?
And then other strategies like is understanding and listening, paying attention to what I call is feeling words. So if someone says, I'm very upset about something, so you say to them, back to them, you acknowledge your feelings. So I hear you saying that you feel upset. Or I hear that you're saying that you're unhappy about the situation. So it's what I call a strategic listening, because a lot of times, most times we listen to respond, and we're listening to respond back with our own opinion and not respond back to see what the person is saying. So when you're doing strategic listening, you're listening for what the person is saying, and then you bring that back to them. And then I think, especially when we talk about a conflict or in arguments, we're so focused on our intentions instead of listening for the other person and then giving them back what they're saying and giving them back what they're talking about and then expressing our feelings. What we need to do, if we start showing them that we're listening to people and listening to getting that other person's perspective, that can help minimize the conflict when you're coming back to them. Because, well, a lot of times, sometimes we argue, you're arguing with your neighbor about when they take the trash out. They're supposed to take it out on Tuesday, and you take yours out on Wednesday. And so they get mad that you have your trash out for a week. And so you're arguing with them and don't communicate. Well, what it is I normally am home on Wednesday nights, and the rest of the nights of the week I'm not in. That's why I have to take it out early. So if you get that chance to express it to them and listen, then you might get their perspective. And then what you can also do is work with them on finding a better solution. Well, how about if you put your trash bins in front of my house on the day that you have to take it out, and then I can take it out for you when I take mine out. And so then now we build some communication and we build a better community.
Ah, I see. So can you give me some examples of where it's worked for people, like in their lives, of any of these strategies?
Okay, well, I can tell you some strategies where I use. I can give you a work strategy.
Yeah.
We worked with a group, and they were having severe conflict over the boss was trying to he was trying to do something for the group to work with them in building teamwork. So he bought a bike for the office. And people in the office felt like, how dare he buy this bike, because we can't use the bike, we can't sit on the bike. So something he was trying to do was good, causes a severe conflict.
Like an outdoor bike?
He bought what was
Or
a stationary
bike?
stationary indoor bike. And so when the staff got it, they felt like he was putting something in their office and giving them something they couldn't use. Why give them a bike? Do something else. So
why did he give him a bike?
I think because from what he was saying, this is what I was going to say with listening and getting people to discuss things. Yeah. What happened was once they talked through the situation, they realized he was doing the bike for them because what he was finding was there are studies to say if people, well, this is what he said, there are studies to say if people get to exercise in the office and find it's a stress reliever going over to getting exercise out. So he bought the bike as a stress reliever.
Right, because you see that in all the big corporations now. They have like play areas, they have ping pong, they have everything.
So he saw it as something to help the staff.
Yeah.
And the staff saw it as him just putting something in the office, just some more space for them, more junk in their office, and didn't understand even why it was there because they didn't think, how could they do their work while they're sitting on the bike?
Yeah.
So they saw it as a problem.
Yeah.
And then when they both realized when they communicated with each other, boss was able to express his feelings, why he bought it, and why it was the staff was appreciative of the boss doing something for them and trying to help them. You know, so I think what happens is communication. Sometimes conflict happens, and because people don't talk about it, or and most time it's because people don't get the other person's perspective of why they were doing something. And the supervisor, after they had the discussion, his perspective was given that he was trying to help them and bring something to the office for stress, and he felt like he couldn't give them a raise, but I could try and give you this bike to do something to make you happy, to make you relieve some of the stress in the office. And the employees heard from him that, he does care about us. He's trying to do things for us. And then what the boss heard was there's a lot of junk in the office that they need to clean up. Yeah. And they need to get rid of some things, of these old things that are in the office that have been there for years. Yeah. So they worked together to figure out, they even rearranged their office, they restructured it, and from what we got from a letter back, some of the staff members utilize the bike now. So.
Wow. Well, you know, that seems like that is not just like in an office situation, but that could happen in any situation where somebody doesn't quite understand where that person's coming from. And I can see that happening a lot, and I've experienced it even with like text messaging.
Correct.
Where somebody doesn't really have the background of why the person's texting it. Like they don't know what the tone is, and there's a lot of like miscommunication there.
And so we talk about that with text and communication and dealing with forms of communication. And what one of the strategies I would suggest as it relates to text messaging is, one, don't be quick to respond when you're frustrated when you receive a text, because you don't know the other person's perspective.
Right. And don't use exclamation points, right?
Right, or all caps.
Or all caps, right.
And then sometimes it happens where
and you could be excited, they might think of you as being angry, right?
And you have to understand people's perspective. So I could text you some super exciting, great news, and you respond back and say, good.
Yeah, and so that person might.
And so that person just is hurt by the fact, oh my gosh, I sent this to my great friend.
Right. Or maybe like what they did was devalued because they weren't as excited and think it's important.
And what could have really been happening, the person, when they sent that text, they were in the car or they were going into the meeting. Right, they didn't understand. And wanted to send, and so they were sending something real quick to acknowledge the text and was going to give you a call later. Yeah.
So, well, that's so important, and I want to talk more with you, but we need to just take a very quick break. So I'm Nira Berry, your host of Happy and Healthy, and we'll be right back, so stay tuned.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions.
I love it.
Cross-referencing travel sites and booking all your flights with those
vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh, but now they're like, aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Nira Berry, your host of Happy and Healthy, and we're speaking today with Christopher Page from the Conflict Resolution Center, and you're giving us such great information. I really appreciate it, and I thought, maybe we can speak about how we can avoid conflict. So maybe you can give us some pointers.
Yes, I don't think we can avoid conflict because conflict is natural. It's a part of life. If you look at there's a thing that talks about, I think it's the Gulf of Mexico, where it's the ocean meets the Gulf. You see the conflict in the two different colors of water. Conflict will always exist. Conflict is natural. It's not, the problem is not conflict, it's just how we address conflict. Because a conflict could be, I have a different opinion than you. And how do you address that issue of having a different opinion? So I think people deal with conflicts and issues differently. And those conflicts become, so it's how do you manage conflict? How do you approach conflict? So how do you approach a person who has a different opinion than you or thinks that something should be done a different way? So for example, a parent may work with two parents, they're raising their child independently. And so I want the child to take up soccer. The other parent wants the child to take up skiing. And both of them are on Tuesday. So which class do they take? There's a problem and there's an argument and a conflict on, I was a professional goalie and soccer player, and the other person says, well, I love skiing. It was just a wonderful sport. I think we should do this, and there's a conflict. They may compromise or collaborate and say, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have them take basketball on Tuesdays. So it's a best situation. Or we'll ask the child, hey, what would you like to do? And the child says, well, I don't want to do either. I just want to stay home and play the violin, So it's those type of things. Conflict is inevitable. It's just how do you address it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing with life in general. There's always going to be things that are stressors, and it's just how our perspective on it, how we deal with it that gets us through it. Right,
and we deal with conflict and we address conflict in various different ways and different approaches. We as individuals, everyone has different approaches how they address conflict depending on the situation. So for example, one would say for example, we would call it avoid or not dealing with it. So if I know that there's a situation with my wife and I know all the time if we deal with this issue is going to cause an argument, I may say, you know what, I'm not going to deal with it today because we're having a great day. I'm going to not talk about it, not deal with it. So we would call it like you're avoiding. So, but we say, well, I'm going to deal with it later on. So that's the way. So one way is you avoid conflict. So you don't talk about it, you don't deal with it, or you figure out those are those people who sometimes say, you ever met that person say the problem will go away some way. It'll magically address itself.
They're putting their head in the sand, like an ostrich.
Yes, that's it.
And it doesn't go away.
Right. And so, but there's some people they avoid.
It can make it worse.
It could make it worse, but sometimes it could get resolved, or that situation right at that moment. Like, for example, that supervisor who knows that when they deal with this employee and when they're very upset and emotional, I say, well, I'm not going to deal with that employee today. I'll deal with them tomorrow when they can listen and receive what I'm saying better. Because they know right now it's better to avoid the issue and deal with the issue tomorrow. So that's another way so they avoid. And then there's other people who compete where you want to argue and fight with the person right then and there and challenge the situation. So, for example, in that same situation, employee comes to you and says, I'm not going to do this, we're not going to do that, and you come back and say, well, I'm the boss and you do what I say and you do it now. That's that competing part. But sometimes there's instances where you have to compete. If that situation where the boss, and say if they're working at an ER, and the person says, no, we need to hurry up and do it this way. And the boss is like, no, I've had experience. I'm a doctor. I've been doing this. We need to operate now. Let's do it and hurry up. There's no more situation. So there's sometimes that you have competing is in emergency situations is probably a great necessary thing. And then there's other ones where we collaborate, where we say, how are we going to solve this solution together? Let's look and gather all the information to solve the problem. And that's where there's a lot more research, and most people collaborate when you have a lot of time.
Is that easy to do? Have you found that it's worked for people?
I think collaboration is what we try to get people to strive to get to, because it's a win-win situation for both parties. But I think sometimes it's hard to collaborate when you don't have access to all the information. And so collaboration also is a thing of it takes more time. So it's a thing of when you have a lot of time. So in emergency situations, it might be not a lot of time if you're dealing with an emergency to say, hey, let's collaborate, let's get all of the information and make a solution. And then also sometimes you compromise, because if you say you invite your your grandmother to your house and you cook your favorite meal, and they say they taste it and they say, oh my gosh, I can't stand it. It's too much salt. Don't want it. And you think it's your favorite meal, you might compromise and say, well, Grandma, what would you like instead? Because that's a different situation compared to if it were your child and they say, oh my gosh, I don't like this. You're going to say, hey, you need to eat your Brussels sprouts. You're going to eat those at the table. So it depends on the situation and the people you're dealing with is how you approach the issue.
Yeah. So if we're, so you said, there's different ways of addressing conflict. And are there some obstacles that you've seen over and over again that prevent people from resolving their issues?
I think sometimes the main obstacle is going to talking with the person, and the fear of trying to understand how what your issue is going to be received.
I think some people are just very adverse to having any kind of conflict at all, so they're just avoiding.
Right, and there's that fear that there's an issue because they're fearing how we've been taking that conflict as such a negative thing. And I love conflict. I love talking with people because I like even in our jobs, you get new ideas. You get new perspective. You get new visions. And you get ways of thinking of things that you never thought that you would think. Because you've heard it from a different perspective, you've got a different understanding. So I think another part of addressing conflict and ways that can prevent more conflict is being open to other ideas, being open to listening, being open to understanding.
Are there any other obstacles, or can you give me an example?
I think some other obstacles are just obstacles are there are some people who just say, I'm going to argue. And because they argue so much, they're not open to listening. They're not opening to, you're having a discussion with someone and they're talking so much that you're not listening. They're talking over you. They're talking over you. They're arguing with you. They're just yelling. And what I found sometimes when people are doing that is because they feel they aren't being heard. And so that's why I say if you do some things to acknowledge that you heard what they said, so you keep I hear you keep expressing your frustration with the way we're doing this. What strategies do you think we could work? So then now you've listened. You've shown them that you're listening to them. You show them that you're hearing them. And so I think sometimes one of the obstacles is people not feeling they've been heard. And they're not feeling that people value their opinion or value their feelings or value what they want.
I've heard you say this a few times that people don't feel like they're heard, like you
Correct.
Just said that. And so what are some ways that you can make that person feel, or whether or not it's an employee or somebody in your personal life, feel like they've been heard? I heard you say that, I hear you saying this, but are there other methods?
Yes, there's strategies to listen to. You're listening to things for what people are saying. So I'm listening to see what you value. So if you keep talking about the floor is a mess, This place is just a terrible array. So what you do is ask a question. So I see that you value cleanliness. And I think what you're doing is some of the things is asking questions about what people have said. That's one. And you say it you acknowledge people's feelings. So I see you're feeling frustrated. So you listen to words that they're saying and repeat that back to them to help them see that you're hearing what they're saying. And then I think also what you want to make sure you do is actually are listening and hearing what they're saying. So you're not just repeating back what they're saying just to be repeating it, but you're listening and try to understand it from the other person's perspective. I think that sometimes helps you minimize conflict. So if you listen and see what they're coming from, where they're coming from, and then also express, like if you're in a conflict and you really have felt that you've done something wrong, you acknowledge what you've done wrong, admit what you've done wrong and apologize and see what we do is what we call restorative justice. And in restorative justice is you've done someone wrong, and what you try to do is try to repair that harm that you've committed to them.
Well, this is really great information. So if somebody wants to find out more information about the Conflict Resolution Center, I know your services are free generally, right?
Yes.
So how could they reach you? What's your website?
Our website is www.crcmc.org. And our phone number is 301-652-0717.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Is there maybe one last pearl of wisdom that you could give us really fast before we end?
Yeah, I say the main pearl is don't take conflict as a negative, but take it as an opportunity. And you take it as an opportunity to get to understand people, get to understand and build community, and get to know someone else.
I love that. That is really wonderful because it's really being open to really, what other potential there is out there, which we may be closed to ahead of time.
Yes.
So I thank you so much, Christopher Page. I appreciate everything that you've opened our minds to,
Thank you
to really living in a better world. So, and I thank you for your work. I really do.
All right.
So thank you so much. And my name is Nira Berry, host of Happy and Healthy. And stay tuned. We've got another segment of What's Good to Know coming up. So we'll be right back. Hi, I'm Nira Berry, life and happiness coach, and your host of Happy and Healthy. And now it's time for What's Good to Know. And as part of my series on success at work and in life, I'm going to speak to you about how you become happier and healthier and more successful. And of course, there's always obstacles that get in our way, right? And I'm going to talk to you about one of the obstacles. And you've heard of the saying, like, sometimes we just need to get out of our own way. And it's really true, because sometimes it's our mindset that actually prevents us from moving forward and being successful in our lives. And feeling successful is really elusive to many people. I've had coaching clients that have said to me that they read magazines and newspapers and watch TV, and they see so many people being successful, and yet it's always been so elusive to them. And it's something that they've never been able to feel like they've achieved in their own right. And these are obstacles that we can possibly maybe get over and maybe even achieve success. And so I said to them, to really think about your mindset, to think about like what perspective you're looking at. So just take a moment right now, take a deep breath and just look around you. and really give yourself the credit to see what you have accomplished in your life so far. And you'll see that whatever success and whatever level you've achieved, give yourself the credit for it. And really, this success that you feel that you can claim as your own could be a step ladder to really lift you up, to move forward in your life. And moving forward in your life sometimes is just really having the belief in yourself. And one of the ways of keeping you accountable is telling all your friends what you're doing and how you really are moving forward with your life. Because then you'll feel like you really need to do all those things. And also, it'll give you clarity. You know, when you take a moment to really think about where you want to go in life and just envision what you want to be and where you want to be, this really gives you the clarity of how to move forward and to really get over any of those obstacles. So I really suggest you do that. And if you have any questions, you could always contact me, Nira, the Happiness Coach, at happyandhealthy@mmctv.org. And this has been Happy and Healthy. I'm Nira Berry, your host, and I hope you have a happy day.